What's up and welcome to another episode of Movie Pitch Monday. This is a show where I pitch hypothetical movies. I have no interest or intention of actually pursuing these pitches. They're not real pitches, they're just fun hypothetical ideas. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Edward Mullen. I'm an author, most notably the Art of the Hustle series, the Prodigy series, Eden, The Secret Manuscript, I Am Rome, and a bunch of other ones. In today's movie pitch, I'm going to be pitching a season 3 of Iron Fist because it was recently announced that there will be no season 3. Iron Fist, my beloved show, got canceled. Now, I don't necessarily understand what all the criticism was. I had suggested this show to several of my friends and they all didn't like it. I loved it. I loved kind of like the business aspect of season 1 where they're in like the Rand Industries or whatever that company was called. I liked the casting. I liked how badass Colleen was. I thought the martial arts were cool, storylines are cool, the powers were cool. I mean, I like the show, but I'm in the minority, so it got canceled, unfortunately, but through this pitch, we get to see what a season 3 might look like. Okay, so just to recap what happened in season 2. Not a lot actually happened if you really stretch it out. We have, the Meachums are at odds with each other. We don't see any of the Rand Industry stuff, that's dead. Ward and Danny are kind of homies. Danny and Colleen are dating, and they're living together. Danny is like a delivery driver. He's taken some kind of humble delivery driver job. He meets this lady called Mary Walker, who we find out has kind of split personality disorder, and she was hired by Joy Meacham to like trick Danny because they ultimately wanted to strip him of his powers and give it to Davos, which, spoilers, they eventually do that. Davos gets the powers, Danny no longer has the powers, and Davos hooks up with this kind of local street gang, and they start kind of, enacting their form of street justice. He's like killing people, he's like putting his fist through people's stomachs and trying to clean up the neighborhood, but going about it kind of the wrong way. So in the end, Danny and Joy and Ward, they kind of all align on the same team because they realize Davos is out of his mind, and they, through these other people, try to trick Davos. They stab him with this like tranquilizer. They do this ceremony on him, and Danny goes, you know what? Maybe I'm not the best Iron Fist. Colleen, why don't you be Iron Fist? And Colleen's like, me, I can't do that. Eventually, Colleen decides, yeah, maybe I can do that. So she becomes Iron Fist and defeats Davos, who's now weakened. They both have Iron Fist in this really cool end scene. Colleen is triumphant. Davos gets defeated. He's stripped of the Iron Fist. And in the post-credit scene, there's actually 2 post-credit scenes. One, we see Colleen with like this samurai sword, and it's glowing, like her Iron Fist is transferred to this object, which is pretty badass. And Danny, I believe, this is going from my memory, I watched this about a month ago, but he's in Asia with Ward, and it's like several months later, and he somehow got his Iron Fist back. I think he had 2 guns, and he shot, and the bullets were like glowing, so like he was able to transfer his powers to objects as well. Okay, so I did a little bit of research on why people didn't like the show, and there's a bunch of reasons, and I'll pick 3. And the reason why this is important is because if we're trying to have a successful 3rd season, I'm trying to pretend if I got hired on, this would never happen, but let's say I got hired on to save the show, to fix it, I would definitely need to address some of the weaknesses of the show. It's just logic, right? So what are the weaknesses? There's a bunch. Some people say like the martial arts weren't that good, but I don't think that's really that big of an issue. I think the 3 that potentially we could fix are, Danny's not really a traditional superhero in the sense that he's out like fighting crime. He's very kind of almost reactive. He doesn't have a goal. There's like this thing in writing when you're trying to develop characters, like what would your character do otherwise if this villain was not trying to do this thing and your character is not trying to stop the villain? It's kind of like the story beyond the story. Would they just be some office clerk? Would they be a delivery driver? Or like, what would they be doing? And I think Danny, maybe we could have him serve more of an active purpose, an active role to use his powers as a traditional superhero where he's going out and trying to like stop crime. The second thing that came up was that there's lacked a villain, which I don't necessarily agree with. I don't necessarily agree with the first thing either, but it lacked a villain in the sense of like, Daredevil has Wilson Fisk, or something of that nature. Flash has a Reverse Flash. I mean, this last season we saw Davos. He was a pretty admirable foe, and I think if that's what the people are asking for, I would definitely try to have more villains. So I'll definitely address that. And the third criticism that I came across, these are not necessarily in order of importance or the biggest criticisms. These are just three that I kind of picked out. A lot of people seem to be complaining about Kunlun, where they talk about it as this magical, mystical place, and it's only ever talked about in like reference. We see like one fight scene, but they don't actually ever show us what that looks like, this kind of magical city. And I think that's fair. Okay, so taking these kind of criticisms in mind, I'm going to pitch you a season 3 of Iron Fist. Okay, so the story left off with Ward and Danny in Asia. I would continue that storyline. Perhaps the reason they're trying to track down some evildoers that are responsible for Danny's parents' death. Now back home in New York, Colleen has reopened her dojo and she's teaching like a group of disciples. She basically has her powers and she's teaching martial arts. She's no longer in contact with Danny, and she's a little bit lost as to what to do with her life and these powers. So one day she receives this cryptic letter with her family crest on it, and there's some message written in it. Remember in season 2 she received some box, I can't remember, I think there was like a comb in it with her family crest, and then I think there was like a coin or something with her family crest on it. I would play into that storyline. We need to figure out what this means, and I think Colleen is the descendant of some like ancient samurais or something like that, these people with like really great powers. So she goes to Japan to track down the origins of this letter, and wouldn't you know, that's where Danny and Ward are. So they team up and we learn about some backstory about Colleen's legendary family history, and maybe she is like bestowed this like ancient samurai sword or something, kind of like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. This is like a really badass sword. So they're running around Japan and they're trying to track down leads and they're doing their thing, and they somehow, I haven't figured out how, get an invitation to go to Kunlun. I don't know how they do that, but let's just say basically what I'm trying to say is that the entire season is going to take place in Kunlun, and no longer in New York. We saw a little bit of that episode 1, but now they're in Kunlun, and Colleen's got this badass sword. They both have powers. Maybe Ward, he's back home doing something. He's not there, so it's just Danny and Colleen. Now here we see Kunlun is this like really magical place. It's a shell of what it used to be. It's in a state of ruin. There's nobody there. We have to learn a little bit about the backstory. I'm not necessarily the perfect person to tell you about that. But there are like secrets to protect there. I mean, ancient scrolls or some sort of sorcery or power that, the same ability that bestows Iron Fist into Danny. They have other secrets, perhaps like immortality or, like iron strength or something of that nature. And so as they're, rebuilding, they decide, okay, look, we have 2 powers, we're strong, and we also have a history of training disciples. You have a dojo in New York, let's just do that here. And so they start recruiting people. I'm not sure how they do that. I don't know what Kunlun looks like, if it's like Wakanda, if they have like, do people actually live there? I'm not sure. But they would start kind of rebuilding and sweeping floors and, patching up walls, and they're rebuilding it, right? And they're kind of like the guardians of these secrets. Now, here comes the villain. This villain is really badass, and he looks like an ancient samurai. Maybe he's jacked, he's got some armor. He's not a traditional Iron Fist villain. I would just make up my own villain. And he's after, say, like the secrets and the sword or whatever. I don't know. I haven't figured that part out. But him and his homies, these like dudes in like ninja suits, storm Kunlun, and there's an epic fight. And this whole season is like them trying to get the secrets and Danny trying to protect the secrets, and it's a big like melee ensues. So we see Colleen, she's like a really badass. She's like one of my favorite characters in TV. She's got this like glowing sword, and she's just really coming into her own as a superhero. Now, she's teaching all these kids, and one of the kids decides to be a little bit shady and underhanded and steals these kind of sacred scrolls and gives them to, like, maybe he's been working for this, like, the bad guy this whole time, gives them to this bad guy, and this bad guy, like, learns the secrets, and he has some unbelievable power. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe iron legs or something. I don't know. Something cool. And his plan is to defeat Danny and Colleen and destroy Kunlun forever. You know, these secrets die with him. He's going to be this, like, ultimate warrior, you know, powerhouse who's going to maybe go back to, like, I don't know, New York, let's say, and just, like, take over. And Danny and Colleen cannot let this happen. Okay, so Danny and Colleen go back to New York City, and they are severely outnumbered. These, like, ninja dudes with powers are running the place. They're all over, like, street gangs, destroying stuff, you know, taking over. And so Danny and Colleen have no choice. They're completely outnumbered. They have no choice but to teach these secrets themselves to their disciples. They're, like, kind of their dojo people. So all these little, like, I don't know what she was teaching, like kung fu in her dojo, they bestow them powers. So now it's like a whole squad of people with powers versus another squad of people with powers. And boom, when you know, it's the whole, you know, like season finale, and these two forces come together and it is complete chaos. So in the end, season finale, good triumphs over evil. They defeat these enemies. They strip them of their powers. They take the kids in their dojo and they have some ceremony to maybe take their powers away, or maybe some people get to keep them, I don't know. And yeah, so there it is. Season 3, Iron Fist, Kunlun, villains, some badass martial arts. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you like the video, if you like the pitch, please hit the like button. If you want to see more pitches like this, please hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time.